Hello and welcome to Bharat Shakti. I'm Brigadier Chatterji. We're going to be talking about the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, and I will be mostly dwelling on the issues post Pahalgam. What should be our response, really? It is a terrible, disastrous attack by terrorists trained and infiltrated by Pakistan into India, who took on tourists who were innocent, who had not seen perhaps this kind of a violence or even thought of it being a part of their own life ever before. And there we have 26 people who are dead. So, to discuss the whole issue, I have with me Nitin Gokhale, our editor-in-chief. Welcome, Nitin. Welcome
Thanks.
home. I have to keep asking you to come over. Well, Nitin, the first thing that comes to my mind is something gone wrong with Asif Munir, General Asif Munir, the Chief of Army Staff of the Pakistani-army. Why did he do a thing like this? He knew he could not get away with it.
Well, I think you have to go look back at his recent speech to the overseas Pakistanis just about 10 days ago, where General Asim Munir really had an intemperate rant against the Hindus and saying how we are not the same people, Hindus and Muslims, how Pakistan has a separate identity. It was all decided in 1947 and we must continue to push our own identity.
My dear brothers and sisters and sons and daughters, please don't forget this story of Pakistan. And don't forget to narrate this story of Pakistan to your next generation. ताकि वो पाकिस्तान की कहानी ना भूलें. Well, our forefathers, they thought that we are different from the Hindus in every possible aspect of life. Our religion is different. Our customs are different. Our traditions are different. Our thoughts are different. Our ambitions are different. That was the foundation of the two-nation theory that was laid there.
Basically, it was a dog whistle to hurt India and to say that that is the main reason for Pakistani army's entire approach to how they defend and protect Pakistan. To hurt India is their main thing, and he also spoke about Kashmir being the jugular as far as Pakistan is concerned, Kashmir issue. So that is one of the reasons I think he's a hardliner, he's a radical. From his whatever character sketch that is available to India. He was known as, or he is known in India as a Mullah General who recites Quran at the drop of a hat, is a devout Muslim certainly, but also a rabid India hater. So he also has another reason to do all this, is that Pakistani army's image today in Pakistan amongst the people of Pakistan is at its lowest. The Pakistani people are actually openly now either mocking or criticizing the Pakistani army, which has never happened before. I think we had Mr. Tilak Devashar in one of our longer format programs, where he said, as a Pakistan watcher, and he's a very specialist kind of a Pakistan watcher, he said that he's never seen Pakistan army or Pakistan in such a state as he sees Pakistan now. And Pakistani army being the custodian of the Pakistani destiny, as they like to believe, he needed to shore up the image of the Pakistani army in the military. And what better way to do it than to mount an attack on innocent civilians. They've crossed a red line, and he expects India to do a reckless or immediate retaliation, which will give in turn him a chance to then launch what he could call a holy war against India, and then try and shore up the sentiment amongst the people of Pakistan. I think that's his game plan.
I quite see your point that he's a mullah general. But is he not even professional enough to understand that a holy war launched by him has no chances of success? After all, when you go into war, you always see the end state. You have to define the end state that you reach, only then have you really won a war. Doesn't he see the end state very clearly?
No, so as a military man, you should know, you should tell us, that it's easier to start wars, but there is no control after that whether it will end.
It's very difficult to finish a war. And for a mullah general, this may be more a question of establishing himself as a mullah, but definitely not going into the annals of history as a professional. That's how I will define man. Anyway, why talk about the individual alone? Let's go a little further than that. He's abrogated every possible bilateral engagement that we've had or bilateral agreement that we've had. Set aside, our actions so far, the most, I would say, right at the top of whatever we have decided to do with the Pakistanis so far, is the Indus Water Treaty being held in abeyance. Is that an adequate response? I don't think it is, because the Prime Minister has been quite categoric that he'll do something which is really much more than
that. So I have said this elsewhere, that this is a good first step. Holding the Indus Water Treaty, which has stood all kinds of stress and strain in the India-Pakistan relationship for 65 years. It was signed in 1960. It has survived 3 wars, 65, 71, Kargil, and then all the crises that we have gone through. And it was never held in abeyance by India. But this massacre of innocent civilians has actually crossed a red line in India's mind. And therefore, it's a good first step to take. Along with it, the other 3-4 steps that have been taken by India in the immediate aftermath. But that's not where India is going to stop. You heard the Prime Minister in Bihar, where he was speaking mostly in Hindi throughout his speech. But one remark he made in English, and I think it's a clear message to the world and to Pakistan, what he has in mind. He said, we will pursue the perpetrators to the ends of the earth, and we will not bend in front of terrorism. We will make sure that they are brought to justice, not just the perpetrators, but also the conspirators.
I say to the whole world, India will identify, track, and punish every terrorist and their backers.
So, which is a clear message. And if you look back, and I was going back and looking at 2016, after the Uri attack where 19 soldiers were killed, and then what the Prime Minister said that time. He said exactly the same thing, that we will make sure that the terrorists behind this and the people behind this will be punished. So the surgical strikes were launched, if you'll remember. But I think this time it will be a much larger punishment. And I think that punishment would be meted out to the Pakistani-army and its interests, rather than just the terrorist camps or terrorist leaders, that's Jaish-e-Mohammed or Lashkar-e-Toiba or the TRF, the resistance front, which is also a front of the LET. I think it will not be limited to that. I think India will go to seek to hurt the interests of the Pakistani military leadership. It could be business interest, it could be their personal interest, anything of that kind. That's what my sense is.
Right. But let's look at it the way the Prime Minister has put it across, that obviously he says what has been done is not enough.
Right.
And it's been, a lot more is going to be done. Some of it perhaps in the military domain. Now, can we think of something which is more costly for Pakistan than what we have done in the diplomatic domain? It's called whatever these 5 steps which have already been given out. Do you see anything happening in the military domain?
You have to tell me that, because what options could be? Because as a military officer, you would know that there would be several options which are already worked out. I don't know whether that works it like that.
You see, there will be options worked out. That is not an issue.
I mean, it's already ready, but they are all presented to the political leadership.
Yeah, there will be options worked out at all the command headquarters concerned, which have their areas of responsibility along the India-Pakistan borders or the line of control for that matter. But it's a question of which option to exercise, how much to exercise, how far to accept collateral damages also, how far will international opinion go with you. All those factors to come in, and they'll have to be built in first. And only then do you decide on the construct of your military response. One thing that comes to my mind is today military domain is not just the domain of firing weapons or moving tanks. It's also the domain of cyber warfare. It's also the domain of so many other domains of warfare that come into play.
Right.
So is it possible, I was just thinking about it, that we launch a cyber attack, if we have the capability, and neutralize a particular system, with be it railways, some part of it, or be it the banking system, where it hurts them. At the same time, it is not also so attributable. At the same time, it has an effect on other areas like their economy and their growth, etc., things like that. Possibly that is one thing which comes to my mind.
Possibly that is possible, but I would think it will be a combination of a covert action or a deniable action, like what you are suggesting, and a spectacular publicly available or demonstrative action against Pakistani army's interest is what I would think, because only that will take care of the anger amongst the common citizens of India. Because if you've seen over the last 48 or 72 hours, there's so much anger about how it has happened. The questions are now being asked about whether we had become complacent in Jammu and Kashmir, whether this could have been avoided. But all that aside, I mean, that is of course the questions to be asked. But there are, you would be aware more than anybody else, that if you prevent 99 of the 100 attacks, you still can't claim success, because the 100th attack may go through and then that will be deemed a failure. And that's exactly how it must have happened, because I don't believe that the security grid has been so lax or relaxed in Jammu and Kashmir. But yes, the complacency can be in the mind and said, okay, tourists have not been hurt so far, so therefore they will not be hurt again. In the last 4-5 years, nothing has happened of that kind, and maybe that complacency has cost us so many innocent lives. But come back to what should be India's actions. I think this combination of what you have suggested and a spectacular kinetic action is what I feel will happen.
I think we should also try and take a few lessons from Pakistan itself.
That's
right. Proxy war. Proxy war is not the exclusive domain for Pakistan and want to be really following up with. We could also do something like that. Let's say the Baluchs are very much against them, and there is a possibility of creating a situation which is detrimental for the Pakistani forces in Balochistan by possibly giving them aid now.
So can I say this, that Pakistan is already blaming India for what happened, because some analysts have now referred to the Zafar Express incident where the Baloch rebels had hijacked the train and had killed so many Pakistani soldiers. The hand behind that was India's, is what Pakistani analysts and generals have been saying. And some analysts have bought into this, that what happened in Pahalgam was actually a fallout of what India did as a response to what happened at the Zafar Express. So India is seen as a troublemaker in Balochistan for a long time. But I'm not even going there. Suppose that's a covert action which is deniable, so we can't really say whether it happens or not. But look at Pakistan's state of affairs. Its economy is in dire straits. Its military is fighting a losing battle in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa against the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. It is getting a beating on the western border with Afghanistan, where their old friends and allies Taliban have turned against them. So do they have any wherewithal to actually sustain or even launch a war against India? Although Asim Munir may want war with India to shore up his image and his sustenance or his continuation as army chief, does Pakistan have the capacity to sustain a prolonged war or even a limited skirmish along the line of control?
No, I would definitely say Pakistan does not have the capacity. That's not the issue at all. The bigger issue is they'll do the cyber rattling with their nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And that's already been proved in 2016, 2019, Balakot and
Uri. Both.
It's been proved over there that that's a very hollow kind of a call, and it cannot really be executed. And in case the nuclear option is exercised, by the way, let's just take a hypothetical case.
Yes.
The first casualty is Asif Munir.
That's right.
Anybody else or not is besides the point, but Asif Munir is not going to rule
Survive,
the country for even a day more thereafter.
Yes.
But I do see a possibility of the way they have been sending infiltrators to us. At least Afghanistan and Pakistan are not doing too well, definitely not the best of neighbors. We could perhaps, we have a relationship building up with Afghanistan at the moment, and maybe that could be exploited to keep them more engaged over there.
Correct. So that possibility is also being talked about, that could Pakistan be hurt on their western border rather than looking at the eastern border at all. So that is another possibility. But let's look at it this way, that the world is looking at India for what action it will take. India has already briefed nearly 40-50 diplomats from different countries in the last 2 days, and have told them what India's feeling about this attack and how the red line has been crossed. But what has Pakistan lost in the long run, I would think, before we end our discussion, is that they have lost the compact or the trust that they had with the Kashmiris, which they thought they had, perceived, let's say, by doing this. Because what has happened is, after Pahalgam incident, the tourism business, which was flourishing and booming in the last 2 or 3 years, the last year's figures for 2024 is there were 22 million people or 2.2 crore people or 2.36 crore people, Indians and foreigners, went to Kashmir as tourists, which means that livelihoods were flourishing, all that. But that has now gone out of the window for the next 2 years at least, if not more. And the average Kashmiri will not forgive Pakistan for doing what they have done. Because if they were, so far as they were hurting the security forces, they were targeting them, I don't think anybody bothered about it, which was happening over the past 2 years. But I think the larger strategic loss for Pakistan and Asim Munir is this, that the Kashmiris, despite a segment of them still supporting Pakistan, I think the larger Kashmiri society is going to go against them given what has happened now.
And definitely, Nitin agreed with you, the larger Kashmir society will not be with Pakistan. Everybody wants his bread, butter and a future for their children. That is what is the basic requirement of the man on the street. But for Modi, it will be a difficult choice to find a response which fits within the parameters that is acceptable globally, and that's required over here between these two countries to ensure that we behave like normal human beings and we do not go into this kind of a battle. So,
of course. So therefore, I think the response is not immediate, kinetic response. It will be thought out, deliberate, well discussed and dwelled upon. After that, it will happen, I suppose. It will not be like within 10 days of what happened in Uri or in Pulwama, Balakot followed in 10 days. My sense is India will take its time and maybe widen the conflict or the skirmish, because Pakistan doesn't have the capacity to fight on multiple fronts or along a wider front conventionally, I would think.
I think you're absolutely right there. We need to build up, on our side also, we need to build up opinion in favor of us, and only then can we possibly go in for this kind of a thing.
That's right.
Right. Well, thank you, Nitin. Thanks so much for having joined us.
Absolutely.
At home.
Pleasure.
Right. Viewers, thank you so much. Please do tune in like this now and then you will find such interesting incidents being discussed. Thank you.